The Art Center inspires creativity and contributes to
community well-being
through equitable access to
and engagement with visual arts.
We collaborate to offer exhibitions,
learning opportunities, artist development,
and cultural events centered on
art, artists, and art enthusiasts in the greater Corvallis area.
Hi, welcome to TAC Makes a Podcast. My name is Jenny Castle, and today I am here with Gabe Babcock and Roberta Monte James. In September, they will have a show in the main gallery at the Art Center called Dualities. The show opens on September 21st, and the reception is the same evening from 5:30 to 7. I'm here with both of them today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, thank you for agreeing to come and talk with me today. I'm really excited to talk to you both about the history of your collaboration as artists over the years and the upcoming show. So can you talk a little bit about how the two of you met and how the collaboration began?
Well, Gabe, do you want me to start?
Go for it.
Okay. I met Gabe in 2011 when a mutual friend connected us because Gabe's his craftsmanship is very similar to my husband. So our mutual friend thought, oh, Gabe is somebody that John, my husband, should meet. And that is true. They are both very talented, capable individuals and have become very good friends. But Gabe and I also developed a wonderful friendship during the course of the years that he was working here in Colusa. And that's basically the short story of how we met. One thing that I cherish really actually in the early years of our friendship is Gabe would come over to borrow a tool, John wouldn't be home, and he and I'd have a cup of coffee and we'd end up talking and getting into these great conversations. So that's what developed our friendship at my end. Gabe might have a different story, but I always looked forward to his visits to Colusa when he would spend the summers here. And he just became part of our family. And that was pre our collaboration. That's, over 10 years ago now. And we've been collaborating for about 5 years now, I think. And we'll let Gabe tell his side of that whole period of our lives.
You refute that story, Gabe? Or
No, I can confirm everything, except for Roberta was too nice to me. Yeah, so when we met in 2011, I was just randomly in Colusa working for some folks that I was working for in college. Pretty serendipitously, she just walked across the street and said, oh, you need to meet my husband. And because they were remodeling a house, and I even showed up to their house with my building resume, which was nothing. They kind of looked at it as like, oh, this is nice of you. But no, yeah, Roberta and John were really my parents away from home. They took care of me. I was fresh out of college. They fed me, kept my feet under me and happy, and quite a fun meeting them. And they've been friends that you don't get to make every day of your life. So
how did you end up connecting conceptually through art? When did you realize that your work complemented each other so well?
So this was kind of a fun story. I was in Koala, and they have an amazing art center there. And I was walking through, and then I ended up talking to the director again randomly. And he said, well, yes, we do accept shows, but best if you can apply with somebody else. We kind of like to get as many people exposed as possible. And I was like, well, I don't do collaborations. I hide in a hole in the wall and just do my own thing, blah, blah, blah. So I went home and kind of thought about it, but didn't really think too much further because I didn't have a whole lot of friends that did art. And then Roberta was organizing a Quilts Around the Block in what year? Maybe 2018?
That was 2019. And the first one was during the pandemic, 2020, I think.
Okay. And I had just built an old prune barn where I was living in Colusa to be a little gallery space to do shows periodically, trying to kind of give exposure to younger artists who wouldn't necessarily have a space to do a solo show or not. And it's kind of an informal space, but it's really turned out to be something pretty cool and fun for the community. And I told Roberta, hey, if you want to display some quilts in the gallery for this Quilts Around the Block program, go for it. And so she started putting up her quilts, and I had work that was still sitting on sculpture plinths and stuff in there. And she kind of started hanging quilts around my work. And I was like, whoa, this looks cool here. Let's try this there. Let's try this. And anyways, it ended up just like blossoming into this totally cool show that was supposed to just be drive-bys for cars. So they'd get out and come in, and it turned into, we were both pretty happy, I guess, with how it went. And so then Koala ticked into my mind, and I said, you want to try doing this? And here we are.
And so like the show literally popped up, like it was a pop-up show that popped itself up. That's amazing.
Well, and the collaboration as well, because I equally was stunned at how, I mean, they're completely different mediums, but they just seem to resonate. And, our conversations would always, as we come from very different backgrounds and eras in life. I'm a grandma, and Gabe's just starting his family, and the connections that we've been able to find have been, well, it's so far endless, and it's been really wonderful. But just the way we both seem to approach our work seem to be similar. And I'm relatively new. This is not my career, although my entire teaching career, arts was a huge focus in getting children and students of all ages to work in art and do art shows and so forth. That was one of my favorite things to do with students. So I've had experience, but not a whole lot of training. So this was a new thing for me, and it's been a wonderful adventure so far.
Roberta, how did you find fiber arts? Like, what brought you to that medium?
Well, I've always enjoyed quilts. I use them a lot in my teaching, but more for math, American history, and they would be embedded in lessons. And I always thought, well, that was something I'd like to try at some point. I'd never quilted before. My friend coincidentally opened a quilt shop. And so that just sort of was a nice little coincidence. And I started getting interested in fabric and realizing I do love collage anyway. So it's like, this is a lot like collage. And what I found was I love the traditional quilt work. I do. I have a high respect for it, but I have no interest in reproducing that or following patterns. I just approached it like collage. And again, we live in a pretty small community. We have many, many talented quilters here, traditional quilters. I didn't have my people. So Gabe, oddly enough, in his, different place in life and different medium and all that, was my closest colleague, so to speak, or collaborator. So that's how I got interested in quilting to that extent. I used to tease my friend, if you would have opened up an art shop or a paint, I may have gone in a completely different direction, but this is what was accessible to me and caught my interest.
That's great that you connected conceptually, and then this really unique partnership and pairing was born. Gabe, you want to talk a little bit about how you found your medium? Like why did you go this direction? It's very unique, and you make really beautiful objects, but you have to have a certain set of skills to be able to make what you make. How did you get here?
Long story short, really, it kind of starts with Dennis Statz, who is a pillar of ceramics in Corvallis. He recently passed away, sadly. But I had him, I think, every semester in high school as a ceramics teacher. And if I wasn't in the class, I was in there during my off times as an aide or whatnot. So he really pointed me in the direction of art. I took it seriously in high school, and then I didn't really ever see myself. I think I was going to go be a nurse and play soccer. So I went and did that for a couple of years and kind of got over it, realized it wasn't really what I was wanting to do. Spent the better part of a year kind of student teaching with him unofficially. And he said, well, University of Oregon has a good ceramics program. And I was like, well, okay, that sounds fun. I just needed to get a degree so I can do something else with my life when I'm done. So I went to U of O and was just blown away at the ceramics firing program that they had there. And at the same time I was at U of O, I met these great folks and I was kind of just doing yard work for them, but we ended up having the connection in Calusa where I went down and worked. At that point, I was doing forestry stuff for them as well in the Sierras and started collecting rocks, and I was doing building projects, and John James, really kind of Roberta's husband, really kind of opened my eye to this idea that well, you can figure out how to do anything you want. You just got to figure out how to. And so I started drilling holes in rocks. I was hanging rocks. I was carving rocks, polishing them. And it was really like, well, people polish a countertop. How can I polish this basalt stone or whatnot? And with a little bit of help from the folks that I work for, I don't know, how would you describe them, Roberta, as art lovers, supporters, but very intellectually engaged in art as well. So I certainly learned a lot through them. And they just gave me a blank canvas to do all sorts of projects. When I'd go out and collect stones, come back and figure out what to do with them as a backdrop of canvas, continue doing ceramics at the same time, and then even got into wood through them, mainly redwood and now cedar and whatnot. All the projects I do is really salvaging material, stones on the side of a road, reclaimed redwood, because it's kind of a rare thing now, but it's beautiful stuff that people often burn. So I get on classifieds and I go find a deal. I drive a trailer and come back with a boatload of burnable material that I try and make something use of. So
I absolutely love that. That's really wonderful. That's how you find your materials and then transform them. Like, I mean, I haven't seen any of your work in person yet, but the images that you've shared, I mean, I don't think anyone would think that they were pulled from a burn pile. I don't think that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, some of them are glorified burn piles. I mean,
you got to find the right burn piles, I guess. Yep. So since the first accidental exhibition, how has the collaboration evolved, and where are we now? What is Dualities about, and what are you hoping to accomplish with this show?
Okay, I'll jump in. I think Dualities came about because we were both pretty amazed at the beginning, as we've said, that how something so different resonates with each other. And I remember when we were writing the statement for that show, what kept coming up was, fabric feels, it's so fragile, and stone is, they're just so different in just the connotations with each of the medium. And yet they really connected. And so we just went with that one almost informs the other. If you really pay attention, you can, and nature's that way. I mean, nature is, and both Gabe and I really have a mind toward that when we're creating. And as soon as we realized that that's very much a good metaphor, or a good symbol for just being out in nature. It is everlasting, like stone can be, and yet it can be destroyed, and it is so fragile. So that just sort of seemingly fell in our lap. But the collaboration was great when he was here in Calusa, because we could. I'd drive out to the gallery, and we'd end up talking, and then I'd come home with more ideas. And then I didn't even understand that that's what collaboration was until he moved. And now I really do miss it a lot. But it was really just the conversations and the thoughts that I would leave with after having hung out for a bit, that I'd come home and they would just be on my mind as I would just go in my studio and just sort of let it flow out and see what would come.
To add to that, so in January this year, we finally made the move. My wife and I are both from Corvallis, and family here, parents here, and blah, 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 blah. So we moved back happily, but there's certainly that bittersweet. I mean, who knew we'd find the community we found in such a small little rural town of Calusa, California. But we did, and we were very sad to leave, but Corvallis is also a great place, as you well know by now. After the show in Guala, I wanted to keep this going, and not to burden Roberta, because she's got grandkids now and whatnot, but she willingly, excitedly said yes. And so I think that's when I got on the Art Center's website and saw that they had an opening call, and I said, "You want to do this? It's my hometown. It'll be great. It'd be fun." So I really just wanted to get kind of involved back into the arts in Corvallis, which I'd been away from for the better part of 15 years. So,
and I'd like to add that Gabe is sorely missed here, just in the small art community that we have here, but just in the town in general. I often will be uptown in the park or something, and now. When's Gabe coming back? So you and your family are very much missed, Gabe.
How are you maintaining the collaboration? I think that there's a lot of artists who, by choice or by necessity, move, and they move away from the communities that have supported them. And so any advice on maintaining a long distance relationship as this?
I think it helps that even though, I have grandkids and lots of family activities and so forth, but I'm retired essentially. So, I have some time to work around Gabe's schedule, and he also occasionally has to work here, which is also lovely. Zoom helps, phone calls. It's not quite the same. It's a little takes a little bit more planning and energy than those serendipitous cups of coffee that we would find ourselves sharing, so it's different, but we're managing so far.
Yeah, to put it bluntly, it's hard.
Well,
we're making the most of it.
Accurately.
It doesn't feel like it's as productive. It certainly isn't as productive as it was. I feel like we have a good enough foundation that I can kind of come up with the idea or concept. Like we were just looking over the floor plan, talking about layout, and pretty quickly we just fall into boom, boom, boom. This is just kind of how it always was, except for it's not coffee in front of us that we're sharing. We made our own, and we're looking at a computer screen rather than each other.
And you know each other's work well enough now that you can probably anticipate how it will interact, which is a really special thing. When you know the depths of somebody's practice and you have a shorthand.
There's such a mutual respect. It just flows very easily, honestly.
When I have a chance to do art, I'm selfish enough that I wouldn't do it if I wasn't excited about who I was sharing it with, if you will. So.
And I'm old enough not to want to waste time with anybody I don't want to collaborate with.
Perfect. Well, I'm really excited to be hosting you both in the same space, and it'll be a privilege to watch your process as you see each other in person again and start collaborating and organizing your work in a physical space. That'll be really a fun process. And I'm glad the Art Center has the opportunity to host you. So for everyone listening, I'm going to remind everyone that Gabe and Roberta will be at the Art Center September 21st through October 28th in the main gallery. Their show Dualities will open on September 21st with a reception from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And both artists will be in attendance. So come meet the artists in person and witness this wonderful energy between the two of them. Thank you so much for your time today, you guys.
Thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to TAC Makes. This is a new creative project at the Art Center, and I hope you enjoy our learning curve as much as we do. You can find more episodes on YouTube and Spotify and on our website, theartscenter.net. That's arts with an S.